Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Indigo aims to become a global airline by 2030, says CEO Peter Elbers. Eyes 30% revenue from international routes this year. Expects planes to have business class by 2025, along with a sizable increase in revenue. That's an exclusive. Tata Steel gets $654 million in support from British government. UK Business Secretary apologises to the people of Port Talbot as 2,500 jobs will be cut. CEO TV Narendran said that moving ahead in UK is crucial this year, warns of margin pressure this quarter.
When the chips are down, you can bet on India.
Prime Minister Modi kicks off three-day Semicon India Summit in Noida, says India is embracing all measures to become a semiconductor powerhouse, promises to support the industry at every step. Union Cabinet likely to clear the third phase of government subsidies for electric vehicles. Sources say the FAME scheme will be renamed as PM E-Drive with an outlay of 10,900 crore rupees. Two Mauritius-based foreign portfolio investors named in the Hindenburg report on Adani withdraw their petition and comply with SEBI's disclosure regulations. Sources say both FPIs withdrew their appeal from Securities Appellate Tribunal after liquidating non-compliant holdings. The 6,500 crore initial public offer from Bajaj Housing Finance gets bids worth more than 3 lakh crore rupees. Strong demand coming in from institutional investors, retail and high net worth individuals. Government moves to fast-track approval process for startups domiciled overseas and looking to move back to India. Corporate Affairs Ministry notifies amended rules on compliance requirements for companies reverse flipping into India. Lenders seek debt resolution for state-run telecom company MTNL without any haircut. Sources say lenders have met Finance Ministry officials and argued that haircut from a government-owned entity will send a wrong signal. MTNL is saddled with debt of nearly 32,000 crore rupees. The CEO of Surat Diamond Bourse says 250 offices are operational at the moment compared to its capacity to house 4,500 offices, admits that market conditions are not favorable and the diamond business has been in a downtrend for the last 2 years. Drug Controller General suspends manufacturing and sale of eye drops from Entod Pharma. The company claims the eye drops reduce dependency on reading glasses for those suffering from presbyopia. Entod Pharma decides to challenge the suspension in court. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris clash in the first U.S. presidential debate. Harris baits Trump on abortion, immigration and foreign policy as he goes on the defensive. Well, let's begin with a quick look at the day's trading action. A last hour saw Dalal Street end off the day's highs. Nifty and Sensex slipped 0.5%. Nifty ended below the 25,000 mark. The banks fell in line with the blue chips, but mid-caps fared mildly better. FMCG stocks outperformed with the index scaling record highs in intraday trade. Meanwhile, Brent crude prices continue to trade near 3-year lows after falling below the $70 per barrel mark yesterday. This after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, cut its demand guidance for the second time in just 2 months. The OPEC now expects demand to grow by about 2 million barrels per day in 2024. Concerns over demand softening in China are also looming over the oil market. Well, speaking of the markets, the Bajaj Housing Finance IPO closed with investors placing bids worth over 3 lakh crore rupees. The IPO has attracted the highest number of bids by value in Indian history. The company was looking to raise 6,500 crore rupees, of which it had already received over 1,750 crore rupees from anchor investors. At the end of day 3, the IPO has been subscribed by over 63 times. The demand was led by qualified institutional buyers, whose portion was subscribed by over 200 times. The non-institutional investors' portion was subscribed by over 40 times, while the retail portion recorded a subscription of 7 times. Well, from one newsmaker to the other, in fact, the big newsmaker this evening, Indigo, is aiming to be a truly global airline by 2030, according to CEO Peter Elbers. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV18, Elbers said that he expects 30% of the airline's revenue to come from international operations this year itself. Indigo has recently announced the launch of business class as well. Elbers said that 40 planes will be equipped with business class seats by the end of next year. Here is the Indigo CEO in conversation with Shireen Bhan.
When I joined 2 years ago, we set a point on the horizon being 2030. Said, what type of airline does India need by 2030? And clearly the vision was India at that point in time will not only need a very strong domestic carrier, but India's role on the global stage will also be a different one. By that time, India will be the third largest economy in the world. It will be even stronger and closer and deeper connected to many other countries. That requires an airline or airlines which is size and scale, which can operate and compete on a global basis. So I think our benchmark there should be how are we doing on the global level and not per se only how are we doing on a domestic level. So all the decisions which we have taken over the past 2 years, and admittedly it has been a rather busy 2 years, but all these decisions are part of that ambition and objective we're having by being a global airline player by 2030.
A global airline player by 2030, how do the priorities change? How does the execution roadmap change at Indigo to ensure that you deliver on that promise and that aspiration?
Well, that's a very, very valid point. So the very foundation of Indigo is our domestic operation. So today we operate 88 domestic destinations. You know, if you think about, Shireen, 86% of the Indian population is living within a 2-hour drive, provided it's not raining, but living within a 2-hour drive from an
On a very lucky day.
No. It's living in a 2-hour drive from an Indigo-served airport. So that in itself shows the coverage. So we have these 88 domestic destinations and a little over 400 domestic routes. So that's the very foundation of what we are. But increasingly, that is going international. So today, around a quarter of our seat miles are international. That percentage will go up to 30% in the foreseeable future, and will go up even further. So the next step, if you wish, Indigo 2.0, will be solidly rooted and deeply rooted in India, because that's what we are, and moving from there to a global stage. Therefore, we need different planes which can fly further. Next year, we get the Airbus 321 XLR coming in. That will bring us well into Europe, well into Asia, and from the southern part of India, even to Australia. That in itself requires also a different product domestically. That's exactly why we are launching, prior to the end of this year, a business class for the first time on the nation's busiest and business routes. And indeed, and we're very excited about that, we start our loyalty program by the end of this month.
Well, Prime Minister Modi kicked off the 3-day Semicon India Summit in Noida today. Addressing industry stakeholders, PM Modi said that India is embracing all measures to become a semiconductor powerhouse and promised to support the industry at every step. The inaugural event of Semicon India also saw Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav announce that Uttar Pradesh is set to join Gujarat and Assam in building semiconductor units. Meanwhile, both domestic and global players like Tata Electronics and NXP Semiconductors promised to boost their investments in India. I was at the Semicon India Summit, and here are the highlights. When the chips are down, you can bet on India. A quotable quote coming in from none other than the Prime Minister himself as he makes a pitch for India as a destination for semiconductors, pointing out that India has a large market, a large pool of trained engineers, as well as state support.
21st century के भारत में the chips are never down. और सिर्फ इतना ही नहीं है, आज का भारत दुनिया को भरोसा देता है, when the chips are down, you can bet on India.
Well, the current semiconductor scheme has a war chest of 76,000 crore rupees, and it is here at Semicon 2024 that Ashwini Vaishnav dropped the term Semicon 2.0, signifying the next wave of state support programs for the semiconductor industry.
5 यूनिट्स अप्रूव हो गए और उसमें से 2 में कंस्ट्रक्शन का काम अच्छा तेजी से चल रहा है, बाकी 3 का कंस्ट्रक्शन जल्दी चालू होगा. नाउ वी आर फॉर्मुलेटिंग द सेमिकॉन 2.0, which will be a much expanded form of the Semicon 1.0. 4 स्टेट्स के अंदर सेमीकंडक्टर की प्रोडक्शन की फैसिलिटी आने वाले समय में लगेगी, जिसमें उत्तर प्रदेश भी शामिल होगा.
But perhaps the biggest news coming out of Semicon India 2024 is that the next semiconductor unit that we see in India could be in the state of Uttar Pradesh. We spoke to the UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. He said that he's willing to provide 25% capital support, which when combined with the central government support adds up to capital support of 75% for a semiconductor unit being set up here in UP.
कैपिटल सब्सिडी में भी उन्हें सहयोग करते हैं, जो 25% तक जाता है. तो स्वाभाविक रूप से भारत सरकार और राज्य सरकार मिलकर के देते हैं, तो केवल कैपिटल सब्सिडी में ही उन्हें 75% की सब्सिडी उपलब्ध हो जाती है.
We will create 50,000 jobs as part of this journey, which is just the beginning. Every semiconductor job will create 10 additional jobs in the ecosystem.
NXP is committed to double its R&D efforts here in the country in the next few years, which is far in excess of $1 billion.
Meanwhile, TMC leader Saugata Rao has demanded calling SEBI chairperson Madhabi Puri Butch, who has faced allegations of conflict of interest, before the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee. Sources have told CNBC TV18 that Roy said that the market regulator's performance must be reviewed. Roy's statements came at a meeting convened to take up the performance audit of the Jal Jeevan mission. However, BJP leader Nishikant Dubey objected to this demand, saying that it was against the rules. And 2 Mauritius-based foreign portfolio investors, Lotus Investments and LTS Investment Fund, have withdrawn their application from the Securities Appellate Tribunal, which had sought relaxation to comply with SEBI's disclosure regulations. Both these FPIs were named in the Hindenburg report on Adani. The move comes after both FPIs liquidated their non-compliant holdings and managed to rebalance their India portfolios. Now remember, SEBI's new norms for additional disclosure for FPIs came into effect on the 9th of September. And the Enforcement Directorate has conducted search operations at various locations in Mumbai and Kolkata as it probes the Axis Mutual Fund front-running case. The probe agency said that the search revealed various incriminating documents pertaining to overseas immovable properties and overseas bank accounts. Foreign currencies amounting to nearly 13 lakh rupees have also been seized. Now, this comes after the ED registered a case under the Foreign Exchange Management Act against former fund manager Firesh Joshi. Now, the PM e-Drive scheme is likely to replace the FAME 3 subsidy scheme for electric vehicles. Sources have told CNBC TV18 that this scheme is likely to be approved by the cabinet. The scheme will have an outlay of 10,900 crore rupees. However, electric cars for private or shared mobility will not be covered under this new scheme. And more from the auto space, JSW MG Motor India has launched the Windsor EV, an electric crossover utility vehicle at a starting price of 9.99 lakh rupees ex-showroom. Additionally, customers will incur a cost of 3.5 rupees per kilometre for the battery rental module. This marks the first vehicle to be introduced under the partnership between JSW and MG Motor. Bookings for the Windsor EV open today and deliveries are expected to commence in the month of October. And shares of Indian auto component makers, including Samvardhan Motherson, Suprajit Engineering and Minda Corp, were under pressure after BMW cut its guidance. The German launched its EBIT margin guidance for this year to 6 to 7% from 8% earlier. BMW cited sluggish demand in China and issues related to braking system for this revision. And operations at the Samsung plant on the outskirts of Chennai were disrupted for a third straight day as employees staged a strike demanding higher wages. The workers' demands also include reduced work hours and recognition of the employees' union. This comes as Samsung plans to cut up to 30% of its overseas staff by the end of this year. As per a Reuters report, the South Korean firm has instructed subsidiaries worldwide to reduce salaries and marketing staff by about 15% and administrative staff by up to 30%. Tata Steel will receive $654 million in support from the British government for its plant in Port Talbot. The government under Keir Starmer approved the package announced by the previous Rishi Sunak government. UK Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds apologised to the people of Port Talbot as 2,500 jobs will be cut. CEO TV Narendran spoke to CNBC TV 18 earlier today before this UK deal was announced. He said that moving ahead in UK is crucial this year. He also warned of margin pressure in this quarter.
I think in UK our plan was always to transition to a greener process route, which also is a more competitive process route for us because UK has scrap which it exports, right? So instead of importing iron ore and coal and making steel, we said let's use the local scrap and it will be greener steel, which was the business case which we presented to the government and they're supporting us. Let me say that the conversations with the government have reached a very, very good stage, and I don't want to say anything more. Very positive stage. I think very quickly you'll hear some announcements.
So this quarter margins could be lower than Q1?
Well, yes, but like I said, coking coal prices and iron ore prices have also dropped. Coking coal has an impact on our costs. It's not dropped enough. At today's steel prices of what it is, I think coking coal should be much lower.
And coming up on India Business Hour, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris clash in the first US presidential debate. More details in just a bit. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram and JioCinema. Aditya Birla Finance, one of the creditors to beleaguered edtech firm Byju's, has accused the company's resolution professional of playing fraud in the ongoing insolvency process. Aditya Birla Finance has filed a plea in the NCLT against Byju's resolution professional for alleged wrongful classification of the lender as an operational creditor instead of as a financial creditor. The NCLT has agreed to hear this application by Aditya Birla Finance but refused to stay the COC proceedings. The Supreme Court will be hearing Byju's insolvency plea on the 17th of September. And the Delhi High Court has upheld an order directing SpiceJet to ground 3 engines for defaulting on payments of $2.7 million to 3 French engine lessors. The court affirmed that the engines must be handed over to the lessors and added that the dues must be cleared. SpiceJet was challenging the August 14th order, which mandated to ground the engines by 16th of August and return them to the lessors in just 15 days. MTNL is likely to be classified as a non-performing asset category by most of its lenders in the July to September quarter. CNBC TV 18 has learnt that this is because the telecom company missed loan repayments for the past few months. Sources have said that banks rejected the company's proposal of 60% haircut in June. However, lenders are open to restructuring or partial debt conversion to equity. Now, the government has decided to fast-track the approval process for the merger of a startup incorporated outside the country into its wholly owned Indian arm. Ritu Singh is joining us now with more details. Ritu, a big fillip for Indian startups. What more can you tell us about it?
Well, in a big boost to what is commonly referred to as reverse flipping, which simply put is the homecoming of Indian companies which were domiciled overseas, the government has decided to fast-track the process by clarifying the compliance requirements which will apply for such structures going forward. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has introduced a new sub-rule to Rule 25A of the company's amendment rules, under which both the foreign transferor holding company and its wholly owned Indian arm will have to obtain RBI's approval for mergers or amalgamations. The Indian transferee company will also have to seek the government's approval by filing an application under Section 233 of the Companies Act and Rule 25 of the Companies Rules, which deals with this matter. Now, these new rules will come into effect from the 17th of September, and experts suggest it can potentially reduce the delays which are caused by the overburdened National Company Law Tribunal, potentially speeding up the process. The move is mainly going to benefit Indian startups that are headquartered overseas but are now looking to move back to India to either list here or take advantage of the regulatory or tax benefits. PhonePe and Grow are recent examples of companies that have reverse flipped, and there are many others in the waiting. For instance, Pine Labs is in the process of doing so, where the NCLT process is already underway. So it needs to be seen how the new rules affect that. Others like Razorpay or Flipkart are also looking to move their headquarters back to India and may benefit from these changes.
Right, Ritu, thanks a lot for that. Now, India's drug regulator has suspended the manufacturing and marketing license for the eye drops that claim to enhance your near vision in 15 minutes and help reduce dependency on reading glasses. The DGCI has clarified that it never gave an approval to Entod Pharmaceuticals for this purpose. It only granted approval to the eye drops for the treatment of presbyopia in adults. The drug controller added that the company was making misleading claims in the press and over social media. However, in a statement, Entod Pharma said that it has not made any such unethical or false presentations of facts in the media. It added that it will be challenging the suspension of this license in court. Now, it has been 9 months since Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the Surat Diamond Bourse in Gujarat. It was touted to be the world's largest office complex with a capacity of 4,500 offices. However, hardly any offices have opened there since. Earlier this week, the Congress party alleged that only 8 companies were functioning at the Bourse. However, in a conversation with CNBC TV 18, CEO Mahesh Gadvi said that 250 offices are currently operational. He attributed the slow takeoff to a downtrend in the diamond business.
First of all, there is nothing like 3,000 or 4,000 offices can start in a day or in a first day. But yes, we have more than 4,500 offices, and steadily we are progressing toward the opening the offices. Right now, from the 7th July, around 250 offices have started, inaugurated their offices, and they have started their business from Surat Diamond Bourse. But as the market conditions are not favorable in terms of diamond industry, a few of them are doing the business on a weekly basis or twice or thrice in a week from Surat Diamond Bourse. But yes, steadily we are progressing toward opening more offices and starting more businesses from Surat Diamond Bourse.
In some international news now, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris faced each other for the first time on the presidential debate stage on Tuesday night. They started off by shaking hands, but what followed was a stream of attacks by Harris on Trump's fitness to be in office, his legal woes, and his changing stance on abortion. The two candidates engaged in a fiery debate which lasted for 90 minutes, where they sparred on issues like economy, immigration, and the ongoing wars. As a former prosecutor, Harris put Trump on the defensive, prompting him to retort angrily.
I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. We understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Well, staying with the U.S. presidential race, pop superstar Taylor Swift has endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris' presidential candidacy after last night's high-stakes debate with Trump. In a post on Instagram, Swift said, and I quote, "I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in 2024 presidential election," end of quote. In her post, she called Harris a gifted leader and said, "I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos," end of quote. Now, Shiv Nadar, the founder of HCL Tech, was ranked India's top philanthropist in 2023 by the Hurun India Philanthropy list. He donated a staggering 1,547 crore rupees towards education-related activities that year. One of the initiatives in which Shiv Nadar Foundation has invested 850 crore rupees is Vidya Gyan, a leadership academy for meritorious students from rural India. CNBC TV 18's Kiran Khatri reports that this year, Vidya Gyan has set a new internal record, sending 11 students abroad on international scholarships.
18-year-old Raj Dwivedi is excited. He has graduated from high school from the Shiv Nadar Foundation's Vidya Gyan and will soon be the first person from his family to go to the US to pursue a BTech degree. For a boy who hails from a predominantly agricultural family in Uttar Pradesh's Unnao district, higher education in the US with a scholarship is just the first scene in a far larger dream.
I want to work in the employment sector so that I can provide the employment to the local laborers and even to the students and the people, those who are graduated and not getting the jobs in India, because that's a very big problem in India.
The annual Status of Education report found that students in the 14 to 18-year age group in rural areas lack foundational skills. About 25% of the students surveyed in this age group could not read second standard level text in their regional language, and over 50% could not perform simple division. 1 out of every 5 youth were unable to name any type of work or job that they aspired to do. Fixing this is Vidya Gyan's top focus, as it bridges the urban-rural divide in education and gives rural youth the exposure to a global learning environment and the opportunities that come with it.
The only two powerful, positions that they see in their life in the village is an IS officer and a police official. So most of them who come here to fight their way through to become an IS officer. Gradually, the teachers, the systems here, the career guidance cell, the social, emotional and well-being counselors expose them to other ways of life, and they build a deeper understanding of what the world is made up of.
Raj is not Vidya Gyan's first success story. Since its inception in 2009, between 1,500 and 2,000 students have graduated from the institute's 2 campuses in Uttar Pradesh, and over 40 of these students have received international scholarships. This year, Raj is just one of 11 students who have secured scholarships in the US, Abu Dhabi and Qatar.
I am from Sitapur district and my father is a farmer. I am going to study in Northwestern University, Illinois. I want to pursue physics, research in physics only, because I think physics has so much of the scope right now.
I'm first generation person who is pursuing undergraduation as well as going abroad to study. I want to become an entrepreneur, and once I think I became a successful entrepreneur, I will try to take proper steps to mitigate the dearth of education in my village.
The ultimate goal is to set up a semiconductor firm in India, where India can be self-reliant, and I'll also create jobs for people.
Vidya Gyan is now making its way into South India, with a 3rd campus in Chennai set to begin operations in 2025. In Bulandshahr, this is Kiran Khatri.
Well, on that optimistic note, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.